Hello, everybody. Was it Friday? It's not Friday. It's Wednesday. Wednesday at 9 o'clock. It is time to talk all things real estate, Virginia Beach, the area. My name is Sam Sansalone. If you've been watching my videos, none of this is very surprising to you. But if it's your first time, I'm so happy. I love talking about the Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Williamsburg, and about real estate. I just love it. I think about and talk about this all the time. And if you can't tell, this is what I do. And so I love it. So I did a lot of videos, do it every week. And I talk about these things to help you, especially if you're coming from a different part of the country or world and you're trying to figure out where to live. Because I grew up here, right? But my wife, well, she's from South Africa actually, but when she came here, this was, first time living in the area, didn't, make heads or tails about the area more than just what I explained and what I showed her. But the reality is, even talking to her over the last several years, especially when we first met, it was like, this area is kind of unique. And she mentioned that to me. And it's kind of struck me. And I thought to myself, when you're coming from one area to another, like you're relocating for the first time or you're coming here for the first time, it kind of stinks because you don't know what to expect. And it's the same with any place. Whenever you're moving, there's a lot of unknowns, and making those leaps and those taking those chances to move to an area that you had never been to before or that you have never lived in before it's risky, right? And so I thought to myself, man, what are the best ways that I can help someone that has never been here before, or might have been here before, but has never lived here before, how to help them get acclimated and to feel like when they move here, they already feel like a local. They already feel like they understand the area. And that's where a lot of the videos that I make are kind of birthed from, that mindset. So, and when I do these live videos, same kind of thing. I want to be able to incorporate real estate and also the area in ways that if you're coming from a different part of the country or the world, you could learn something to adapt or to implement in your plan, your relocation plan. So tonight we're talking about the market. There's some new statistics that have come out for the November month, because we're in December, but November's statistics are telling a specific story. We're also going to talk about some areas based on what the market's doing now that I would suggest keeping in mind if you're looking in certain price ranges. And then there are a couple of things that have been kind of bouncing in my mind about relocating or moving, the actual moving process. And when you get really close down to the nitty gritty, a couple of things that I think would be worth doing and preparing for, that I think would drastically change how your experience will be when you actually move here. So that's all that. We're going to go into all that. So that being said too, I think the title of the video is, are prices dropping? Are they dropping? I mean, there are a lot of houses that are getting reduced, and people are asking me, hey, is this the right time to pounce on a house? Well, again, it depends. There are some specific factors. We'll talk about those, but the idea is that houses right now, they are starting to sag, some in specific price ranges. And I am going to, based on each specific city, there are different price ranges that are doing different things. And so in higher price ranges, lower price ranges, you'll see different reactions to the market based on the current time, based on which city you're in, or based on which part of the city you're in. So we'll talk about that as well. So if you have questions about if I should buy right now, where I should buy right now, what to do if I want to buy right now, those are the things I want to answer as well. So moving next is, I want to talk about, hey, where are you from? Please feel free to comment below as to where you're watching from. Are you watching from a different part of the country or the world? Are you watching from Hawaii or Guam, an Air Force base or military installation, Navy base from a different part of the world? Anywhere, just let me know. I'm curious. I love seeing where people are coming from, whether it be Europe, Germany, a lot of times, Italy, anyway. So let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear, and maybe I can even implement some things, some thoughts I have, maybe that might help you from wherever you're watching from. So first, I want to talk to you about the state of the market. And it's timely because I wasn't planning to do this live based on, oh, hey, Katie. Hey, BF. Hey, good to see you. So Katie, Texas. Very cool. Never been to Katy before, but I have heard that, I guess, area Katy and around Katy has been pretty good. Hey, Greg. Hey, Central Ohio. Very nice. Very nice. Looking forward to talking to you. Yeah. So I work with a lot of people and talk to a lot of people that are watching from the Midwest and also from, it's funny, New York, Florida, interestingly enough, which a lot of people have been relocating to Florida, but some actually relocate from it. Texas, and then also the West Coast, San Francisco, California, Washington State, Oregon, Colorado. A lot of people that come from the Western coast as well. So, hey, John, Minneapolis, very, very cool. Yep. Love it. Love it. I've been through Minnesota only one time. So if you have questions that again pertain to where you're moving from to here, I'll try and make them more personalized too. And again, personalization, that can still help a bunch of people too. So just because I, make it personalized to one person, I think because it's personalized, there are specific details that might be able to speak to a lot of people in what they're looking for, what they're trying to do. So question back to what's the market doing? And I wasn't planning to do this live today because of what the Fed or the Federal Reserve was going to do today, but they dropped the Federal Reserve rates down a quarter point. Now, if you're not into numbers, it's okay. The point being is that your loans, it's not a loan thing, but the cost to borrow money theoretically got cheaper. And when that happens, usually mortgages get cheaper, which means you can buy more house. The same house you could have gotten yesterday or maybe today for X price may have been actually your payment may be cheaper for the same price now. Doesn't mean that the price itself is going to drop. It means that the cost for the same price is going to drop if the rates drop with the Federal Reserve rates. The main thing to know is that when the Federal Reserve rate drops or increases, it is not the same thing as a mortgage interest rate. Mortgage interest rates are based off a lot of things, but one of the factors is the Federal Reserve rate. So it's important to know that when you hear about Fed rates dropping, it does not mean mortgage rates are dropping, but it can mean that mortgage rates are dropping. Right now, they haven't necessarily dropped really much at all because of this news. Why? Well, one of the reasons that is you're seeing like, oh, okay, rates are dropping. Well, part of the reason that the mortgage rates haven't really responded in the same exact way is because is that mortgage rates are factored into, or mortgage rates are forecast based on expected future conditions, right? So if they know that the Federal Reserve rate is going to drop, for example, they might bake in some pricing or some cost to lend money based on the knowing of that happening. So when you see the Fed rates dropping, the mortgage company or mortgage rates might have already factored in that potential event, which I think in this case it already has. The problem is, I think that people were expecting the Federal Reserve rates to drop farther than they already have, and they have even today. So when they don't drop as much, the expected drop relative to the actual drop, if the expected one was higher than the actual, it's like, oh, this might not be as great of a situation as I think, meaning that the mortgage rates might not respond in kind because it actually is not as positive or as high of a drop as they thought. So it's like, well, how do they adjust to that new information? So right now, I think mortgage rates, you're still in the 6.5 range, and I don't want to specifically quote. You got to talk to your loan officer because it really can depend on the situation, right? But point being is that we're still in the 6s. You can still see sometimes 7. It kind of bounces around, and I think that's still going to probably most likely take place for a little while. I say a little while; it could be a couple months, 2, 3, 4 months. It could be a little while, and part of this too is like people were expecting rates to drop a big jump, and they haven't. And I think personally, I didn't think it was going to happen. Not because I'm some smart guy that other people should just listen to all the time. But the reality is that when the whole consensus thinks one thing, you can pretty much guess that it may not happen that way. And so the market was like, oh, the rates are going to drop a lot soon. Get ready. They haven't. So I think it's kind of a humbling thing is to say that, hey, the professionals don't necessarily know as much as we like to think that they do. We do. I would say I'm a professional in a lot of realms too, right? So, hi. Hey, sorry. Oh, is that it? Sorry, that's all the pictures. Apologize. Anyway, I digress. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I was jumbled in my mind. So thanks for your patience. So anyway, does that make sense with the mortgage rates? I think what's happening now is that the rates are going to stay floating for a bit around where they're at now because of this slowdown of the drop. So in knowing okay, what now? We're in December. Rates aren't going to drop as fast, which means my buying power is not going to drop as fast. or it rises as fast. Now what? Okay. Well, there are some specific market conditions, like some now conditions just from right now based on what now is happening. But there's also some cyclical conditions that you can factor into all the other things going on to make kind of a full-fledged thought out decision. Okay, so in general, December, November, January, like this fall time, winter time it's a time where the market usually drops. Okay. Or the prices are reduced, or the median sales price is less. Okay. So on one hand, you say, okay, well, I'm going to show you. Let me show you something. Oh, hey, Chris. Oh, Chris. Hey, Chris. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. I'm sorry. I said Ed. Apologize. Is there a reason why rates haven't dropped? Well, I hope I answered the question correctly. I apologize if I haven't. I'll explain it later if that didn't make any sense. But point is that my personal opinion is they expected more of a Fed rate drop, and it hasn't happened. Therefore, that's part of it. And also, they are expecting people to refinance. I think there's a part of that too. But again, I think that the rates not dropping as fast, I think, is a big part of it. But so let me share with you my screen and show you the median sales price for Virginia Beach in 2024 in November to show you. Hang on. You're watching me look at the screen here, but give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and whoops. There, and there. Okay. This is 2024 November, 446 is your median sales price. And you're seeing, you watch this every year. I'm going to zoom in a bit more. The prices drop every fall, right? And you got, well, I actually balanced, but point is there's always a peak in May. This one peaked because meaning that those were houses that were bought in April, but then it kept dropping through the fall and it bounces. And again, there's always a bounce in the fall right before the year ends, but now you see a drop. Remember last year, the same thing happened. It bounced up through November and then boom, 12 December and then boom, January, it dropped. Same thing happened. A little bit of lesser degree in 2022. It's a little bit of a weirder situation then, but let's see, go back here. There's 11, boom, down to 12, December, and then same flatlined in January. It happens almost every year. So the point is that the prices, generally speaking, median sales prices drop. Okay, well then it's like, well, that means that prices are going to drop, right? Well, possibly. The problem though is that when prices or median sales prices drop, part of that's because that the median sales prices of certain types of houses are I guess the aggregate of the whole market has a different type of house that sells in different times of the year. So if you're selling a 4 or 5 bedroom house and it implies you may have 2 or 3 kids, right? Well, if that's the case, you might be also moving based on school district. Well, if that's the case, you're probably not moving in December. You're probably selling your house in April, May, or June, or maybe even March, right? You're planning around the school systems because it's easier to move then. It's harder to pull your kids out of school in the middle of the year. So it's not as common to see a house that has a school district dependent dynamic or more a larger house selling in the middle of the wintertime, right? So in general, the types of houses that have less cyclical needs to sell possibly in times like this, in the wintertime or in the late fall. So you might find that more houses sold in the 200,000 range or 300,000 range or 400,000 range, possibly even, might sell more than the 5, 6, 7, and 8, for example, or even the 4s. So you'll see those numbers trend down, I think, part for that reason. And also because there are less people in the market. And even the houses that do sell in the 4, 5, 6, 700,000 price range or $1 million or whatever, those will often usually sell a little bit less too, because again, for the same reasons that we're talking about, the supply-demand dynamic. Hey, Kevin, Lakeland, Florida. So I loved, I say I loved, I've never been to Lakeland. I've heard a lot of great things about Lakeland. I was very intrigued by it. But hey, Kevin, nice to meet you. Thanks for watching. So point being is that now that we're in this middle of like almost to be winter, but holidays time period, houses that are on the market now, generally speaking, are not going to sell very fast. Now, that means that you could think, well, that means I can get a better deal on it, right? Well, yes. Generally speaking, yes. The median, let's see, go back to Let me go back. Hang on a second. Average percent of list price received. Let me show you some more statistics here. So the average sales price percentage of list price that a house is getting is now at 100%. Well, it's like, well, that's crazy. Why is it still 100%? Well, that's because, well, seeing it still drops, right? You see, because you go up into like the springtime, 101%, 100, almost 102%. 2022 it was 104. That's crazy town. But point being is that it always drops in the fall and December, in wintertime. But even 100%, so that means at the listing price, there's a good chance it's going to sell at that listing price. Now, so how does that work with price reductions, Sam? Well, just because a house sells at a listing price doesn't mean it started at that price, right? It means that it sells at the price, that listing price that it's at. So that's not an exact direct indicator of what an actual house, if you see a house priced at 500,000, for example, it doesn't mean it will sell at 500,000, but there's a good chance. But if it sits, that means that if they drop it, there's a better chance it'll sell at whatever price it ends up dropping to. It's that there's a equilibrium, like a tipping point, to where you hit that tipping point. Good chance that the people in demand at that price are going to want to go after it at that price once they see it and they like it. Does that make sense? So right now, at a certain sales price, if it's been sitting there for less than maybe 5 to 7 days, good chance it might sell at that sales price, if it does sell. So then it goes to things like, okay, well, prices are dropping. What do I do? What do I do with how to strategize finding a house right now between now and even December, January, February? What to do? Well, okay, the main thing to keep in mind here is that you could look at numbers all you want. You could say, okay, well, median sales price is X. You could, the average is this. The house prices are dropping or whatever. Point is that every individual house has its own market, because it's not like buying, you could sell Tesla stock. Every stock is the same. You could buy one stock and buy another stock. No, you don't see any difference between the first stock, Tesla you bought, and the second one. It's still a share. That's not the way real estate works, because every house is so different. You can have a 3,000 square foot house that sells immediately because it checks all the boxes that everybody wants. It has this, perfect, it's got the pool, it's got the fence, it's got the needed, new roof, HVAC, all, checks the boxes, nice open floor plan, has all those things. And so because of that, you'll see, and it's in the perfect spot, neighborhood demand, those houses are going to sell for probably, the peak of what you can get a house to sell for in any price range at any point in time of the year, because it checks all those boxes. But if you have a 3,000 square foot house, maybe in the exact same neighborhood even, but let's just say it's all hallways, there's I'm just making this up. There's no bedrooms. It's just a bunch of hallways. Well, okay. Well, that drops the demand for that house, which means that you may not get you're not going to get the same price for that kind of house. It's craziness, a bunch of hallways. But the point is, you're not going to get the same sales price. So there's an individual market for each individual house, and to take the market numbers and to ascribe that to every individual house the same way, I think is a misguided approach to looking at it, at the market, and how to get a house, how to get the right house. Exactly. The issue is there is so little inventory that even now in December, the few people that are looking to overbid it. Yes. Okay. So that's part of the issue that we have, is, well, Chris, that's a pretty great way to describe it, for that one specific type of thing. So if you see a checks the box house, you can't look at it like, well, prices are dropping, I can offer 20,000 under if it's 625. You're going to get blown out of the water, and you're going to be like, well, why is this not working for me? And then you might have your real estate agent might suggest you might need to offer over asking price. And you're like, well, they're just trying to get me to buy this house. Hey, it's real. Because as soon as you have 2 or 3 offers on the house, now the house that was 600 or 400 or whatever, that now becomes a different conversation, because now the only direction a price can go is up, or the terms have to be more competitive. And you're like, well, now I'm paying more for a house in a market that I thought was supposed to get a good deal on. Well, yes, you can. The key, though, is to know that there are fewer in-demand houses in this time period. There are still in-demand houses. There are just fewer of them. Back in 2021, almost every house was in demand, right? 90% of houses were going over asking price, or maybe say 70, 75, 80%. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, in Virginia Beach, especially, more than that probably. And well, just getting a house, the deal was getting the interest rate. Like getting the house was the bargain. Now, as there are fewer buyers that can afford a certain price range, they become more picky. But if everybody's like, oh, I want that specific house, all of a sudden you find yourself in a 5 offer situation. And you're like, what just happened? Everybody wants that house. And to that point is that in this type of market, people are very, very meticulous, or what's the right word? Not meticulous, but I guess picky. It's just kind of like a negative word, but you're careful. You want to be careful about the house you buy. You don't want to buy if that market's soft. You don't want to buy just any house just to buy it. You want to buy the right house. And so people that are looking in that mindset are focused on specific houses, and voila, there you go. 5 offers on a house, and you've been waiting for 3 months to see a house and you haven't seen one. And you're seeing house prices drop. All of a sudden, the one you want got 5 offers on it. Why is that? Because if it does check a lot of boxes, people are looking for those same boxes, which is a good sign for you when it's time to sell. The problem is it's not as easy when it's time to buy. So don't relax too much when you're trying to find a house in December or January, because again, it's not a ghost town. You're not the only one out there looking for houses. You're just potentially one of the few that can buy a specific house. But if everybody wants the same house, it might feel like you're in 2021 all over again. Here we go. We lost. Yep. 9 offers. There you go. Great example. This is a perfect example of why in the world is this happening in December 2024. It probably was an awesome house. Sometimes what happens too is people will price their house under because they know 2 things. One is they want to get that competition up. 2, because they don't know really what the market's going to do for their house. They want to make sure it goes quickly. And sometimes the market surprises them like, oh, okay, I got more than I thought, So they're in the midst, ingrained in all of the minutia of the market, the general narrative of the market is soft because it's December. In the middle of all that are those little pockets where 9 offers, Chris, 8, 3 offers, all that's, so it still happens. It's just less of it, right? So that's what they did. Yeah, price it low. There you go. And then you have different conversations about price strategies at that point, when you get to that type of situation, but that's a whole different conversation. So which I'm not talking specifically to your situation, Chris, but just it's kind of got me thinking, well, when those circumstances leads to different strategies. But for what we're talking about here, if we're looking at like a chart of 100, you got 100%, like what's the right, maybe a pie chart. And let's say 80, back in 2021, 90% of that pie was over asking price offers for houses to get one, right? And then in 2022, maybe it was like 70, 65. Then in 2023, it was like 30. Now 2024, it's like 20, in that range. It's getting less. But again, you're picking that 20%, you're going to still run into the same situation regardless of what year it is. So what I'm looking at though is, okay, let's just say in the top 20 or 15 even percent of houses in Virginia Beach, for example, are going to go over asking price. Okay, let's just say, all right, I don't want to do that. Sam, I don't want to do that, which personally, my opinion is that's an emotional dynamic in the real estate purchase, which is a very valid thing. I don't want to do that. Understandable. Keep in mind, any in-demand house becomes an in-demand house when you sell. But the point is that if you don't want to get involved in that whole ruckus, okay, well then if it's the top 15% are doing that, what about that 15 to 25% range? That the best of the rest. There are some that kind of slip through that don't get offers because maybe a house that checks all the boxes got all the attention and they all had to focus on that one house. Well, then another one hit the market at the same time. That one may not have had everything, but it was close. That all of a sudden got 0 offers, but maybe if it was the only one, it would have gotten more offers, but it got 0. You slide in there, it's that 20% range. Maybe you can offer asking price or a little bit less. Watch for those types of situations that can happen because the people that are listing their houses, some people are still thinking that they are in 2021. They're in the crazy and I can get whatever I want. Some are like, I need to sell it for whatever I can get. I'm not sure what the next path is for real estate. I need to sell. That's where you can maybe get some value. You don't know what type of seller this is. So offer a little bit less maybe in some cases, but mainly in those such circumstances, if it's like beyond a week to 10 days, that's where you can start getting a situation where you might be able to get, some knocked off the price. But as time goes by, 20, 30 days, that's when you can start getting like 2, 3% or more. And I'm being possibly conservative, but there are times where you can get 8, some percent sometimes, or 5, whatever. But here's what's interesting. I want to talk to you about one specific thing that I think might help you in your own individual circumstance, regardless of where you're looking, right? I'm going to use Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake as examples, but Suffolk, Virginia, Portsmouth, Newport News, Hampton, Williamsburg, York County, James City County, that all kind of applies in some way. But what I'm finding is that before, 2021, 2022, the price range didn't matter as much because, well, part of it's because the interest rate was so low, like any house was affordable to people. And then as rates went up, the purchasing power went down. Then price range started mattering, and the concentration of buyers dropped to different price ranges too. So what I'm finding is that there are certain thresholds in each city that are getting less activity as you go above that number. And so what I'm going to do is, especially just focusing on right now, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Norfolk, just for the sake of conversation, but I can go into Suffolk, Portsmouth, or the peninsula as well if you have any questions you want to ask. But point is that for this exercise, Virginia Beach, if you look at Virginia Beach, and I don't have data on this exactly, but I can tell that once you go over $600,000, the demand and the ability for a house, the amount of houses that are still sitting over 600 is drastically different relative to the amount of houses selling or sitting on the market under 6. And then same even increases even more as you go under 5. And 4s, it's pretty competitive. I mean, we're not getting not 2021 really, but you start seeing, 30, 40% of houses are selling, relatively quickly, right? As opposed to 10, 15%. Once you get over that 600 range, that's when you start really don't see as many, you don't see as many houses selling as fast. It does happen, just not as fast. Trey, I'll pause on my comment there, my topic. What do you think will happen? Hey, Trey, good to talk to you. What will happen in the next couple of years as far as buyers' demand, as in aesthetic design or other aspects? Are the demands, are the demands for open concept design dwindling, etc.? Great point. I was actually going to mention that. The open concept, I think, is kind of dropping to a certain degree. Not like boxy, everything's boxy, can't see where you're going thing, maze. But open concept, I think people are realizing that having one big open room is very hard to clean and to host people in, and you don't want your whole house just to be full of mess. So I think there is that is one thing. Another thing too is people, I think, are getting tired of gray. Not to the same degree as don't paint your house gray, but I think if there are certain trends that people are doing with flips, house flips, the flippers still do the gray and those taupes and all that, or whites, and the LVP floor and that type of thing. I think LVP it's still happening. I just don't think it shows as well. And I think people are catching on to it because the pictures look the same every time. It's like, I've seen this before 80 times, gray walls, possibly even gray floor, all similar colors. It's like, oh my gosh, can you find some alternative here to mix it up? Goodness sakes. So that's I think the biggest thing is seeing those, and you can see a flip from a mile away at this point because they all use the same color schemes. And they don't check on trend changes. Some are getting more into like the greens and blues and golds, and I'm liking that. But anyway, that was kind of an abbreviated. Your question is a really good one. It's also very detailed. I don't want to dismiss it, but it's also kind of a deep one there too. Looks like the average house in the Virginia Beach area has gone from 300 to 450 in just a few years. Yes. Isn't that about the largest increase in history? Probably. Yeah, probably. I wonder if a crash may happen in a bad economy. Okay. All right. That's another theory question that personally, I've wondered that too. Prices going up, you feel like, well, it's got to come. What comes up must go down. All right. Well, it could be. I think there is going to be as the amount of houses continues to rise, in which case, by the way, this year compared to last year, there are, I think it was about 16% more houses in the market right now than there was last year at the same time. But of that, I think only about 5% more have sold. So you can see that there is a trajectory of increased amount of inventory. So, but the reality is we're still at like 2 months of inventory. And what does that mean? It means if no houses are on the market or no houses add to the market, and if they sell from now, how long does it take for all the houses to sell in the market? That's a weird way to say all that. The answer is 2 months. A normal market's like 4, we're still way under. So I don't think we're in a place to where house prices are going to be like dropping a lot anytime soon. I mean, again, I could see like a sag a little bit. A crash is going to, I think, require something else drastic to happen. The last one was because of foreclosures. The foreclosures are so few and far between, and part of that's just because the people buying these houses are extremely well qualified. There's been a redistribution of money across the country. I think part of it's because I help a lot of people buying from California, for example, Colorado, Washington State, Texas, a lot of places that have had prices increase. Arizona, even more, much more than here. They take that equity and they can plop. They can buy, put 20% down easily, 50%, or even full cash, and it really doesn't make as much of an impact. So there's a redistribution, and I think the ability for people to buy houses, I don't think it's like it was there then. So the reason for a crash that was happening then, I don't see it happening now for that reason. I mean, goodness sakes, it's still, again, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of onions are still $6. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Everything's expensive. I just think the market has had money infused into the system. That just creates a high tide rises all boats situation, I think, with money. So I just don't see it. And I'm not saying, again, this is when I could say, well, I could be totally wrong. I don't know the situation where that would be the case, but I could be wrong, but I don't really see it because just based on, especially on how many people are well qualified, or the people that are qualified are well qualified. Again, I'm not saying that a lot of people are qualified, because again, that's if that was the case, we'd have a crazy situation on our hands. We're just not there yet. But again, I think the people buying are qualified pretty well. So January 20th, Hampton Roads employment. Are you concerned about employment reduction and inventory increase next year? Yeah, I mean, the inventory or for employment, the military is a pretty big factor of that. And you make a good point. That is the one thing that if something was to happen in the military, the amount of employees either in the military or because of the military, contractors, if that goes down, I could see a softening, especially in the higher price ranges. And those contractors, those jobs, you're talking, people that are buying a little bit higher price ranges, I could see some softening there. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable potential of anything. But again, like of that, the percentage of people that are in those contracting jobs or military jobs, it's I think the biggest industry here. But again, that's still maybe, don't quote me, maybe like 20, 25%, which is a lot. It's a lot. But of those, how many are buying houses? How many? I don't know. I don't know. But I do think that of anything, that could lead to a more local market factor issue if we do find that the government gets shrunk or there are just less contractor jobs, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a valid comment. Very valid question. So my point originally was going to be based on the price range. So right now I'm looking at the Virginia Beach price range over 600. I'm seeing houses sit longer than under 6. Same. I actually have a client I'm helping right now, listed our house over 6. I was watching it like, hey, we need to get under 6. Got under 6. Wasn't too much longer until we got the offer we wanted and got under contract. So it's a pretty significant threshold, I think, is $600,000 right now. Now, there are factors in addition to the price. School district, the times when the prices or the higher prices over 600 matter or still sell quicker, or when the school district usually is a bigger deal. So for example, the most in-demand schools, you can even probably look at it on niche.com, greatschools.org, and say, okay, well, people often are using those as comparisons. That can be part of the, I can use that as an example. So, 750 in some of those more in-demand school districts, as opposed to maybe 600, 550 in some other spots. But then if you go into other parts of the city that maybe school district isn't as much of a factor, then you're talking like 450 is a more of a threshold than 600. So it depends on the area. But what I want to do is some examples of neighborhoods that I think are important, that I think could, you see a house that's over 6, but that people aren't looking in over 6 as much. You can offer under 6 and get a good deal. Place like Kings Grant. Awesome neighborhood, often would be a place where people would go after, but if it's the wrong house, but it would be the right house at the right price. If it's priced at 625, maybe you can get a little bit cheaper, that kind of thing. They're good. Another great example of a great neighborhood for that type of thing. And what was the other one I was going to? Great Neck Meadows, another one that's in the south part of Great Neck. I don't want to divert too much and go into the map too much and show you those spots, but you can look those up. And those are houses, neighborhoods where house prices are in the, just over 6, but maybe you can get one under 6, and with the seller that might be feeling like they've got to sell quickly or sell, it's been on the market for too long. So that's 6 in Virginia Beach is a pretty key number to me. Norfolk, it's more like 450. And we're talking like Talbot Park is a great spot to look at. Larchmont. There's another one too. There's a couple of them. Oh, Lafayette Residence Park, which is over closer to the east side of the Ghent area, but not that close to Ghent. It's like in the old historic area-ish, but not right in the middle of it. Those are like 425, 450 range. You can see one. If you see one that's great, but priced a little too high, you can go right under there and get it. And that back in the range where that's more palpable. So Norfolk 450-ish, 400. And then maybe the central to the eastern side of Norfolk, more like 400, 375, 350. It gets a little bit lower. Chesapeake is closer to what you might find in Virginia Beach. Places like in the South Chesapeake area, 600 is a pretty key number. Etheridge Lakes, you'll see them in the 6s. Getting one a little bit cheaper would be great. The Etheridge Manor area, if you look in that area, is a pretty great spot to find a good deal over 600, even under 5, 450. But it gets more competitive in those high demand school districts under 600,000, or even under 700 as you get into those most in demand spots. But as you go over 750 and higher, it's going to be like the primo house will go, but you're not going to see too much activity and movement right now. Just aren't as many houses that are selling that fast in those price ranges in the Chesapeake area, or in general, really. And then of course, going to a different part of Chesapeake, there's another part of Chesapeake, central Chesapeake, that's like more like 350. That's like the Norfolk version of Chesapeake, where it's like right in the middle. I'm going to show you. Gee whiz, if you're with me here, thank you for watching. And I'm going to share my screen. You're going to see me look at a map. How exciting is that? Look at Sam, look at maps. And if you watch my videos, you know I love talking about maps. So thank you for humoring me. I love looking at the maps. There we go. So looking at South Norfolk right here. See South Norfolk? Central Chesapeake is right here. All this right here, talking 350 is that threshold, 325. If you're under that, it's going to sell pretty fast, or the better chance. But as you go down South Chesapeake, it's more like 600, 625 down here. This is Etheridge Manor area is right over here. Etheridge Lakes, all through here near Fentress, down south of there. I love this area for the price. Big fan. So, and then Virginia Beach, southeastern side is more like 657. North Central, Great Neck, Little Neck, same kind of thing. But again, you can find them. They'll sit like Kings Grant, even a great neighborhood, but even then it might sit a little while, especially on the Kings Grant Elementary side as opposed to the Kingston Elementary side. Kingston Elementary side is pretty in demand, so good luck with that. But all that being said, if someone's selling a house in the Kingston Elementary School District in the middle of the school year, hey, might be a great time to get it. Now, part of the reason why I think that this could happen, though, is because a house can sell in a high demand school district, but it might be someone who doesn't have kids, right? Not everybody that's in the Kingston School District has kids, especially with the houses built in the 60s. There'll be a lot of people that bought their house in like 68 they've been there forever. They've been there since they were the original owner. It's a great opportunity to buy a house that's in a school district, in demand school district, but not from someone that has kids that would be factoring all that in. Maybe they have to sell in a certain time that just doesn't factor in all the other dynamics, and they just have to sell. That can happen a lot, especially in a place like Kings Grant. So anyway, so point is, use those thresholds, especially like 600,000-700,000. And it's like, well, okay, well, if you see a house that's, okay. Another thing is, just side note, new construction. Okay. Oh, John, I was wondering if the rental prices have increased lately in Virginia Beach and what % ROI an investor might make. Ooh, so rental prices have increased. They've kind of leveled out a little bit. It's more like, I'd say, typical for increased rent. You can bump it like, 3% a year, that kind of thing. Now I'm seeing it taper off, but it's still, I think, a general increase. The problem is that now you can't buy a house at market value and then expect to make the same amount or more in rent. You will have a negative cash flow if you just buy a house on the market. That was not the case in 2021, but now it's not the case. So, I would say don't buy one to Don't buy one with the mindset of I'm going to just rent it. If you're keeping it for a long period of time and then you can rent it, that's positive. But again, you're not buying it just from the standpoint of getting the max value out of it. It's great to have max value, but you got to make sure you like the house too, because if you buy it just from the rental dynamic, you might find you're getting a negative cash flow. It's just not the right time in my mind just to buy a house just to rent, unless you're buying maybe multifamily, 2 to 4 units or more, but 2 to 4, you can still get a typical, residential loan. That can help if you're doing like a, house hack situation, but it depends. And it's just, this is not the time to get max return, to be honest with you, in my mind. You can get a good house and get a decent return, but it's not like it was 2-3 years ago. So percent, it could be 0 or less if you just buy a market house. I would wait a little bit and just kind of pick and choose if you're not, if you have some time. If you're just doing rental dynamics. What do you think about the Salem area for value? I see some reasonably priced new construction condos. Yes. My video this next week is about new construction. Or was it last week? Was it last week? I can't remember. No. It's next week. It's going to be about new construction. And I'm going to mention that briefly about the Spence Crossing neighborhood. Those are in the 300s. Those are mostly 2-bedroom, 3 bedrooms. I like Salem. Yeah, check out your research on the builder. See what you think. Salem School District. I like it. It's very central. I think if you're going to buy a new construction condo, it's fine. And I think it's a very central location. It's the only problem, I guess, with Salem personally is that you're not near an interstate. I'm splitting hairs. It's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it's not like parts of Kempsville or parts of like even, Great Neck or Little Neck. You're kind of closer to an interstate, but Salem, you're just kind of tucked in the corner, not in the corner, but you're tucked away far enough to where it feels like you're kind of further away. We're talking 4 or 5, 6 minutes difference here. It's not a huge deal, but I like Salem. And yeah, the condos. Yeah. I'm not trying to like diminish or beef it up. It's like, it's fine. It's fine. I've heard someone else say that they thought it was overpriced. I don't know. I wouldn't go that route. I think it's fine for what it is. One factor that nobody is taking into account is Airbnb. Great comment. And renting vacation homes in general. That will oftentimes skew the market for homes in general. Is that a common occurrence? Well, okay. Great question. And here, I think the city has been so old school for so long that Airbnb didn't become such a huge part of the market for any length of time to where it didn't flood the market with Airbnb people, if that makes sense. There is some of that, but specifically Virginia Beach, you don't really see too many people buying just Airbnb. They may have thought to do that in maybe 2018, 19, 17. But a lot of people, like I personally, I was like, I'm not going to buy a house in Virginia Beach and expect the Airbnb because the laws keep changing. I'm not going to buy it with that in mind. If it's a bonus, great, but I'm not going to do that. So I think there's some validity to that. I don't know if it's as much of a part of the market here as opposed to a place like maybe like a western part of the state, like a Luray, like in the mountains, that kind of a thing, where Airbnb is a big driving factor, or maybe even Florida, for example. People buying a second home to Airbnb, that could factor in. I don't see this as a second home type of a place, but I think it's a percentage, but not a drastic amount in here personally. Airbnb is a big problem in a small Ohio town. Interesting. 1 or 2 owners buy up a ton of the inventory and just hold on to them as short-term rentals. Interesting. Yeah. I think it happens here. I just don't think it's like a great widespread thing here personally. But I could be wrong. I've heard local governments are starting to regulate the Airbnbs too, and sometimes outright banning them. That's what happened here early. They were early here in Virginia Beach. Well, each city is different. Chesapeake is not the same as Virginia Beach. Hampton is, I think you could do a lot more in Hampton or Norfolk than you could in Virginia Beach, but Virginia Beach they were like, that's the place where people think beach, Airbnb makes sense, short-term rental. But they put the kibosh on it fast. And so there are only specific overlay districts. They call them overlay districts where you can do that. So personally, I just don't, it happened so early here to where I think the amount of people that ended up buying to Airbnb, some may have gotten caught holding the bag, but I don't think the amount of people that bought, ended up being stuck because the market kept rising anyway. You know what I mean? So at this point, I don't really see that being as much of a factor. personally here. Because what you said, the local government started it early and it really wasn't as big of a factor. To your point, what about just eating the mortgage, negative cash flow, renting your home for a while until rents catch up? Yes. Oh, I was saying yes to you, and then you said why. I don't know if you said, oh, why? Or that was just maybe a typo. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the move. That's the I think you have to do it move because that's just kind of how the market is right now. Or wait until not rents catch up or rates go down. You can always refinance. You've got time on your side if you've got a 30-year mortgage. But yeah, I'm all about buying good properties when you see a good property, it's a good deal. If the numbers don't exactly work rent-wise, but you're going to keep it for a long time and you believe in the area, that's enough for me to usually say that's probably a good idea. And sometimes the numbers don't always work exactly the way they're supposed to work. If you just go by the numbers all the time exactly, then you might be waiting for a while. I'm not saying don't believe the numbers. I'm just saying like sometimes there's some nuance in there. And, you're keeping a house for a long time. And like you said, those numbers can catch up or the rates can go down, all that kind of stuff. So absolutely, I totally agree with what you said. And that is what a lot of people are going to have to do. So to your point or comment, that dude, Jay, about Salem, the new construction, and about new construction in general, I was going to make a comment about pricing as far as how to approach new construction relative to the things I'm talking about here with the market. The problem we're running into is that new construction is similar to what you might find in the market in resale or houses that are older, more than 0 years old, because there are mini markets for new construction. There aren't too many neighborhoods in Virginia Beach or even Chesapeake for that matter that are new construction neighborhoods, like neighborhoods where a builder or builders are building in a larger scale neighborhood almost a planned subdivision type of a thing, dozens and dozens and dozens of houses. People like that, but there aren't too many of those right now, especially in Virginia Beach. There are in the video, you'll see me talk about this, but 1, 2, 3, man, there's maybe 3 of varying size. One might have 20 or 30 houses in there. One might have like 10, 5 maybe. And then there's one, Asheville Park of which case now it's probably a few dozen, or it had been several dozen, but there might be maybe like 10, 15 left. I got to go back and look at the map. Maybe like 20, 25 left. That's the big one that's still left. But there's nothing that is available soon that could close. It's all under contract. They have a couple that are up to build. They'll be done in like 6 months. The rest of them, you got to start from scratch and pre-sell. My point is that it's selling quickly because there aren't too many houses that are new construction. That being said, you can go into the new construction market where you've got houses that are maybe one individual house in a pre-existing neighborhood and it's sitting for a while. And you're like, well, what happened? It's new construction, Sam. It should be selling fast. Not every new construction house has the same demand, right? So if you buy a new construction house in an older neighborhood, that's not always the ideal that someone might want because you're just the weird one that stuck out that's in this older neighborhood. It might be a perfectly fine neighborhood, but it just looks strange and it feels weird. So you're paying more than the rest of the neighborhood might deserve per se. So it feels weird. So sometimes those houses sit for a while. So it's a totally different market than what you might find in a planned subdivision type of situation because there aren't too many of those and people like those. So you'll see in a place like Asheville Park, a place like Stony Creek in Chesapeake, Stony Creek, Woodford Estates, to a certain degree, that one's not as fast, but still in Chesapeake, that one's selling pretty quickly. There aren't too many others. What am I missing? A couple of others. Prosperity at the Pines, River something, River View? No, I can't remember. There's one other that has like 5 houses in it. But anyways, my point is that those types of larger new construction neighborhoods are selling faster than the individual houses. So that's a totally side thing. And it's new construction trends more expensive anyway. So all the numbers I'm talking about with like the 600,000, 500,000, you can add an extra 100 or even sometimes more than that for new construction because people are willing to pay more for that type of thing. So, typo. Cool. Gotcha there. I see what you did there, Chris. DC Big Black Man. Sorry. Tell me if I'm wrong there. Virginia Beach native living in Washington, D.C. since 84. Awesome. So my dad grew up in Georgetown before it was like real fancy. Dad grew up in Georgetown, and I was born in 84. I'm 40. So big Commanders fan now. I almost wore my new Commanders pullover that I love. Yeah, so very nice. And curious to know where in DC you live. But I guess you moved to DC from Virginia Beach, and hey, I hope you like it there. It's the opposite of my dad for the most part. So I think for now, I think that's pretty. I want to keep saying, oh, no. Before the two more things. Okay, well, two concepts that I think if you're buying a house here, I want to mention this to you now. New construction near Princess Anne and South Independence area. What do you think about it? That's Salem. Yeah, that's Salem. That's Spence Crossing. I think it was what Jay was talking about. The condos. I think is what we're talking about, right? Yeah, I think that's the same thing. Anyway, okay. So if you are buying or if you're planning to buy, okay, this might really apply to if you're buying any state, really. But this is really important, especially here, because there are that's saying that's Spence Crossing, Trey. Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. Yeah. So again, price is fine. So if you're buying a house, there are a couple things that I want to caution is a strong word, but make you very aware of to plan ahead of time for, because especially in Virginia, I guess it's more of a Virginia thing. You can have some delays that are unexpected that I think you can easily prevent. And there are two things. One is, this is a wet signature state. It's also a type of state where if let's just say you have a closing on the first of a month, right? Let's say you have to pay $20,000 in closing costs or pay something at closing, say $20,000, right? As an example. Okay. Well, usually you do have one of two ways to do that. Multiple ways, I guess, but these are the two primary ways. Check, cashier's check, or a wire. So people often think, well, I've got a good big bank. It's a national bank, Chase Bank, for example, or fill in the blank. Even Bank of America, but Navy Federal is a great example, or just whatever, fill in the blank. I can get a cashier's check pretty quick, or I can get a wire sent pretty fast. People often are surprised, I found, by how slow or how long it can take to get a cashier's check or a wire sent. The cashier's check doesn't take that long usually, especially if you have a local branch. But even then, if you're in line for an hour and you thought it was going to be 10 minutes, maybe something could happen. That's a lesser issue, because if you don't come to closing on time, not a big deal. It'll just bring the money. But if you plan too late in the game to send a wire specifically, and even if they have to, like maybe if the online bank has to mail you a cashier's check or mail you, that whole process to get money sent to you, it can take a lot longer than you might think. It might take you a day or 2 days as opposed to like 2 hours. And so, especially because you have a larger sum of money, they might have to check and do due diligence on the place they're sending the money to. Those types of things can take time. The problem is that people plan to, so let's just say the closing's on the first of a month, and let's just say it's a Wednesday the 1st. Well, people often plan the whole move around moving on the first Wednesday, right? Say they close at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning. They want to close and want to move in, because as soon as you close and they have the money and you've signed, you can get the keys. Well, let's just say you planned your moving truck to come on Wednesday at 3 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Okay. Well, let's also say that you sent your wire the day before. Let's just say the title company or the closing attorney doesn't have confirmation of receipt of the wire yet. What happens then? It means you don't get the keys yet, is what that means. And so it's like, well, okay, big deal. Well, that can, a few hours can really affect a lot of things. If you've got that moving truck coming to that house and moving on the same day as you're planning to close and that money hasn't hit yet, there's going to be a big scramble as to what to do, because that truck's coming and they're not going to probably be able to get into the house. And that's where it's like, you might need some favors. It can happen, but I would not suggest to plan for that. Like, the seller has to agree. There's a whole bunch of paperwork involved. It's not as simple as just, they'll let us in. No, there have been so many negative experiences with people that have been allowed entrance early to a house. Some people are gun shy on that and like, nope, not until it closes. And there's nothing you can do about it. You got your moving truck coming, and they're not able to do anything. So that's a big problem. And so I think what I have found, and I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, I'm not an expert in that, but I found that something has worked. What I have seen people do is, instead of waiting to know exactly how much money you are planning to have to pay at closing, because again, the lender at the time of closing beforehand will tell you, or the title company will tell you pretty close to when closing happens, how much you have to bring, because they have to balance numbers, that whole thing. But anyway, they tell you how much to bring, right? Well, if you wait for that number, and then you've got, like, say you got 4 hours left, or maybe even a day, but like, let's just say you've got like 6 hours to get the wire done, and you're like waiting, and you've got the number too late. Well, now you send the wire, that wire ain't going to come till the day after, maybe. Or maybe you can't get a cashier's check the same day, or they have to mail you. A lot of people use online banks now. Those banks, their process to send money is not always easy and efficient. So what does that mean? It means that you can sign the documents possibly, but you may not be able to get the keys because the money hasn't been sent yet. So that's a big problem. And I think that the double-edged, the combo of not having the amount of money ready combined with the moving schedule can be a really big catastrophe if the wrong things happen. So what I have seen people do is if you start getting an idea from the lender a few days in advance of, okay, I think I'm going to have to pay this amount or ish, just send more than that to the title company or a closing attorney. Again, I can't recommend this. I can't actually formally recommend this, right? I've seen this happen, and in my mind, the title company should be, sending you change back like a grocery store. Again, I don't talk to the attorney. Please get counsel and don't send more than you need to. Just get advice based on your specific situation, I guess is what I'm saying. Just don't do it and say, well, Sam did this. Talk to your title company or closing attorney and see if that's okay, if that's allowed, or if that's the smart thing to do in your situation. But I've seen people send more than they need to, and then they can get change back. They send them the money back. That will confirm, make sure you can get the money will get there on time, and then they'll send you the check back or whatever they do. But it might take longer. It might be more frustrating to get that money back. But point is, they didn't delay anything. And again, I cannot preface by saying that is not me saying do this. I'm saying check with the title company or closing attorney and see what your options are, but ask them if that's a possibility, because that would really help. It helps smooth things out quite a bit. And then the next thing is, do as much as you can to not move the day of closing as much as possible, because let's just say something happens. Something happens on the seller side. They can't close on time. You can't close on time. It wasn't your fault, but the lender, something happened, something that no fault of anybody, but we're going to close on a Wednesday. Now you have to close on Thursday. Maybe it's on a Friday. Maybe it gets delayed until the following early part of the next week. 5 days. Well, now you're scrambling. And now what about the moving truck? Can you reschedule that? Probably not very easily, because now you're cutting it close. How many weeks in advance did you have to schedule the truck out the first time? So that type of situation can be avoided by not scheduling your move the day of closing. I know some people, sometimes you have to do that, and again, it's your personal circumstances, but definitely try as best you can to space out a little bit to give yourself some time, so you're not forcing it at the very end and it becomes a very stressful situation, especially if the money is not ready yet, or even if it is ready, you still can't close for some reason. You got a moving truck coming, and it's coming and you can't stop it. So give that time, give yourself some extra time. And John, how far do you need to be location wise from the Oceana Naval Air Station so you wouldn't notice the airplane noise? Oh man. So what a topic. So the ACU's jet noise zone map is extremely, there's no exact number or exact, what do you call it? Amount of distance. And I'll show you why I say that. Here, you can see my screen one more time before we close this thing out. Man, I'm on a roll tonight. Is this helping anybody? Can I get a yes? Yes or yes? Okay. So here's the ACU's map, and you can't see it because I didn't do a good job of Okay. There's Oceana. The darker greens, more noise, generally speaking, higher decibel levels, lower, lighter colors, less. There's no real specific amount. It's based on flight patterns. So you can definitely see here that it's not like there's no exact number, but definitely just type in AICUZ, AICUZ, jet noise map Virginia Beach, and you'll see a link like this pop up, and you can look around and you can zoom into a specific neighborhood. So if we're talking about, excuse me, let's say you're talking about Princess Anne Woods, nice neighborhood, around 750, 800. We're zooming. This is a new PDF. There you go. Lost it. There it is. So you go. They're in, was it negative 65, 70? And you can even see down to the street where the lines are drawn. So that will help. And so there's no real exact science here. And again, you can see you can be close in some spots, and you're like, well, I'm not even hearing it. Well, that's because the flights don't, airlines don't fly, or the planes don't fly in that area, ironically, So check this. Fentress is on there too, and also I believe Little Creek, or Naval Station. You'll get some of that up there too, surprisingly enough, and also, of course, the Norfolk Airport has some areas too. So, yes. Which one? Oh, it's the map. You like the AICUZ map? Oh, to all the things about planning ahead of time. Yeah. Yes, I like the maps. Oh, yes, it helps you. Awesome. I'm glad it's helping. I'm saying too many things at the same time. John, yes, like the maps. Great. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah. And if you have any more comments or things that you want to, things you want to mention about the videos I'm making, I try and make them as user friendly and as easy to follow as possible. But if you have any more comments, feel free to let me know. It usually comes down to when and where the wind is blowing and going. We had that conversation, didn't we, Trey? That will usually be a good indicator of jet noise in relation to areas. I think we talked about that, didn't we, at one time? Yes, very true. So I think it's in the summertime, you'll hear it more if you're on the south part of the area. If you're in the, wind's coming from the north, you'll hear it from in the south part more. But if the winds are coming from the south, warm in the summertime, you'll probably hear it more in the north part of the city because the wind's blowing, I guess, the sound waves up. The southerly winds would be more warm air pushing up as opposed to pushing down. And then I think the planes also will change their flight based on the direction of the winds. So it's not the wind blowing; it's the direction that they go because of the way the winds are blowing. This is why don't trust me with science, right? But yeah, it's how they're flying, the direction they're flying, because of where the winds are blowing, because they're flying into the wind. If I'm doing that correct, saying that correct. Greg, is 2080 Breck Avenue. Oh, I like that's Woodbridge. Woodbridge. What's the second word in Woodbridge? Woodbridge. Can't remember. Breck Avenue, an example of one that is listed below market price to try to get lots of bids. Well, I know it in Woodbridge. What's the last name? Oh gosh. Yes, it's like one of those check the box houses. Well, that neighborhood itself is. Why can I not remember if you remember the last part of the neighborhood, tell me. But Woodbridge Point. There we go. Yes. Because 2080 Breck, I know where Breck Avenue is. And let's see, that one is 625. So I think that's about right, actually. I think it's about right. But it has the pool. That's right. That one has the pool. Yeah. That's a smart price. It's a smart price to put that at. Now, the problem part is with that is pool. That area, that neighborhood doesn't have big lots usually. That specific house has a big lot. So there's some scarcity dynamics here too. A big enough lot to put a pool in. They're not all like that. So that's that one probably had multiples. I would not be surprised. You're correct. Oh, about the flights. Good. Yeah. Yep. Cool. What can I get for 450 in Virginia Beach? Oh, some good neighborhoods. Gosh, some places in Kempsville, good spots in Kempsville, Windsor Woods in 425 range. Oh man, let's see. What am I forgetting? Oh, I'm doing a video this week or in a few weeks about Point of View as a neighborhood in the mid-4s range, close to Newtown Road and Princess Anne. Love that neighborhood a lot. You'll find some spots. Central Virginia Beach has some good spots. Again, especially Kempsville. I love Kempsville. Over closer to Homestead neighborhood over off of Providence Road. If I'm just throwing neighborhoods out at you, sorry. But yeah, I'm kind of being quick here because I know people are it's been an hour. So if you've been watching the whole time, thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. You still are looking at my ACUS map. So bravo to that. There we go. My parents, your parent. Oh, is that who's moving 450? Yeah. If you're looking for ranches, especially because what happens is in Virginia Beach, there are more houses that are built in the 400 range that are in the ranch style because those were built in the 60s. More houses were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that were ranch style than now because people just don't do that anymore. Like, hey, well, I can build a 2-story house and add more square footage, sell it for more money. Why don't I do that? That's what builders often think. So why would they build a smaller house just because they can? It's like they would make more money otherwise. So you see less ranches now. Older houses, otherwise, no. But if you want ranches, you're okay with that older house, you can get a cheaper version because those are often smaller. Not always, but a lot of them are like 1,800 square feet, 2,000 square feet, all that kind of range. But some great neighborhoods in the 450 range, 425 range, Salem too. Sure. Hi, Isaiah Marshall. Hey, Isaiah. Any good rental property locations? I would focus, if you're doing rentals, just rentals, I would keep it as cheap as possible in Virginia Beach. I mean, I keep saying Windsor Woods in areas that don't need flood insurance just because it messes with the margins, but close to Mount Trashmore, I would probably do that. I would look in Virginia Beach over towards, Virginia Beach in general, townhouses at 300, Kempsville Greens or Kempsville Woods. Yeah, townhouse style. You'll see someone like the Princess Anne area near Kellam High School District, a little bit more expensive, but Foxfire, like in the 350 range, 375 range. I would stick to rentals in like Ocean Lakes. Townhouses are great. But I would probably prefer Norfolk, but you got a different type of house style, older house. So just more to do there, but you probably get a little bit better margin in Norfolk personally, if you're over towards closer to the base. Chesapeake, same thing. I'd probably look at as cheap as possible because the rate of return relative to the rate you can get rent for usually gets closer and better as you get cheaper. The problem is that you're trading that for the type of tenant, right? It just depends on what you want. You can get more of a steady or like a more comfortable rental situation in a higher priced house. It's just you might not get your return. So it's like you're getting a return or you're giving up return for the security of the rental experience. Does that make sense? So you kind of find that sliding scale and the balance there. So I think, man, an hour and 8, yeah, my throat is getting a little bit sore. So if you have any more questions, drop a comment below, or please let me know. You can email me, you can call me, you can text me. I have my contact information here. Where is it? There's my phone number there. We have a 6-month-old, and I'm telling you now is extremely complicated right now. As managing that. And so I apologize if you reached out already and I have not responded back. Please forgive me. You can bump me. It does not offend me. It's just right now, I'm just working on the schedule. I was a non-coffee drinker 3 weeks ago. I am now, I don't want to call myself a coffee drinker, but I'm drinking coffee. Let's say that. I'm drinking coffee. And maybe that's why I'm able to talk this long now. There's my email address right there. There's my website, a bunch of Sam Sansalones all through there, but that's my email. Yeah. And a number. So yeah. And I think that's good for this evening. I've been missing out on coffee. I don't know. I mean, I have seen the benefits so far. I can see why people like it, but man, Starbucks is not good, by the way. I'm like, I don't get the thing with Starbucks. They burn the coffee. Like I thought that was all coffee was. I used to think that if you drank coffee, like I've only had Starbucks for the most part because I got it if I'm meeting somebody and I had some coffee and it tasted fine, but I thought that was coffee. But now I'm like, oh, there's way more to this. And so yeah, if you got any ideas on coffee, let me know. Any good brands you want to tell me about? I'm not brewing anything yet. Let's not get carried away. I'm just buying it at the store or I'm whatever, but it's a cult. Yeah, that does seem that way. I'm getting a lot of comments on coffee. The blonde roast is the only one that isn't burnt. Okay. Well, I'm getting the burnt ones apparently. I'm getting you know why? Because I think someone told me that the darker roasts are less caffeine because I didn't need the caffeine. I just wanted a little bit. Yep, I've been doing Wawa. I've been doing the Wawa, the quick Wawa stops. French vanilla Wawa so far has been my jam, but I mean, I'm just starting. I'm going to a place called Black Rifle tomorrow. I'm excited about that. But yeah, any ideas, let me know. I feel like I may have just opened up a can of worms there. Well, that's fine. Appreciate your insight tonight. Thank you very much. Yep. Best of wishes to you. Good luck. Thank you very much. And if you have more questions, please let me know. And yeah, watch the caffeine. Yeah. Yes. That's the thing. Watch the caffeine and win too, right? Don't drink it too late in the day, right? So anyway, have a great evening. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.